Hi, Jessica Knight again, Research Communications Specialist. In this video, Research Office alum Mike Oakes gives a great overview of best practices for creating video abstracts. He covers a ton of really useful information. So if you're thinking about submitting a video abstract for Research Day, definitely watch. And then you can find information about the tools you have access to for creating your video abstract on the Research Day website. There's information about 3 different programs there: Movely, Doodly, and BioRender, that are all available for you to use. And then after you've drafted your video abstract, be sure to come to one of the drop-in sessions that we're hosting the week before the submission deadline. And there you can get feedback on your abstract from Research Office and communication staff. Thanks very much.
Video abstracts are the other medium that you have the option to present at Research Day. And for those of you not necessarily participating in Research Day, you might be familiar with the concept of the video abstract. It may seem like something that might be a little more involved than putting together an infographic, but it's certainly an important medium to use to tell the story of your research and your science to diverse audiences that would not be necessarily apt to read your paper. And even though it might seem like it is a little more work, it doesn't have to be. And there are a lot of things that you can learn along the way. The nice thing about video abstracts is there's really no one formula to create one. It's, you could be narrating a PowerPoint slide, or you could be including animations and actual video footage, but you can really be creative and do some really neat things to kind of tell the story of your science. So first we'll look at kind of what is a video abstract, the benefits of it, whom are they for, and we'll talk about some best practices and see some examples. Or at least leave you with some good examples that you can reference. So what is a video abstract? So I think we all understand that digitization of the academic world has caused learning and reading to shift online. As such, new types of content are bound to pop up in kind of that new academic frontier. Stuff like tweets. I'm sure many or all of you are on Twitter. Infographics, like we discussed, podcasts, and video abstracts also fall into that kind of new frontier, new ways of communicating science. Some credit the first scientific video abstract as being produced in the journal Cell in 2009. But as early as 2006, we saw the advent of something called the Journal of Visualized Experiments. When that launched in 2006, it came with 10,000 published videos. And it's considered the first peer-reviewed kind of scientific video journal. And a lot of you might be familiar that, since then, and especially in the past decade, the format has really grown in popularity for scientific journals to kind of include these video abstracts with articles. They allow you to not only tell the story of your findings in unique and mostly non-textual ways that can appeal to all different types of audiences. Increasingly, journals are finding room for video abstracts to be submitted along with article text. They've realized, I think, these journals, that they can use the abstracts to help promote articles via social media. So it helps promote your articles and their journal livelihood. But they aren't the only ones who can promote it via social media. If you can create a video abstract to accompany your paper, you can promote it via your social media channels. And then so can we as the college. And that's something we're always going to be more than happy to do. Any, modern, engaging content that we can share that isn't just a link to an academic paper is something that we definitely want to do to help kind of get your science out there. And we'll discuss this in a bit more depth, but the format for video abstracts can vary, as I kind of mentioned. There's no singular way to create one. You can include images generally minimal text, but of course you can include some text, animation, video footage, or simply just the recorded PowerPoint presentation. Whatever you choose, the goal is to tell a brief, plain language story about the significance of your findings. And the research shows that video abstracts work. A study looking at article usage and corresponding video abstract usage, the study was done by the University of Minnesota librarian named Scott Spicer, found that the top 25 and the top 100 read articles had a significantly higher presence of video abstracts than did the articles overall that were studied in the data set. So those that also had video abstracts were more read, is essentially what that finding was. So they're important. Now, why choose a video abstract? Well, at a high level, video abstracts help to accomplish the goal of meeting audiences where they are. Not everybody, and almost nobody, in fact, other than scientists and probably scientists in your field, will read your scientific paper. But if you or your college tweets out a video abstract that you made to accompany the paper, you exponentially increase the chances that your science will reach people generally. Your science is probably complex and difficult to both write about and read about, but with a video abstract, you can physically demonstrate experiments, or you can show viewers what type of equipment you use. And generally, that just helps engage with audiences in a more informal way than a scientific article. As such, just making the effort to create a video abstract is going to expose you to new digital and oral communication techniques and skills that are going to become more and more commonplace over time. We've mentioned that the research shows articles with accompanying video abstracts were more read. It's also often the case that the scientific journals who publish those video abstracts will share them via social media, like we talked about, just to help generate more exposure and interest. And those efforts help make science more accessible to everyone by removing barriers to entry. And so it really kind of furthers the open access initiatives in science. And whom are video abstracts for? Well, they're really for any audience, anybody who might be interested. Video abstracts are suitable for all types of audiences. Plenty of research showing that humans, and Shannon touched on this early on in the infographics portion, but that humans learn and retain visual information more easily than text, and especially moving visual information. So no matter the audience, taking them from a place of reading to a place of watching is going to help increase knowledge permanency, comprehension, motivation, enjoyment, and learning speed. So we know that the world increasingly is becoming digital. The number of people accessing videos for entertainment and education on phones, laptops, and tablets is only going to grow. And so videos on the internet and social media are really a next generation tool that researchers should consider using in order to reach new and important audiences, and really to stay ahead of the science communication curve as we move forward. So what video abstracts can communicate well? There's a lot of things that can communicate well, but the latest findings within research that kind of will inform clinical care. If you have a surprising outcome, it could be a compelling way to talk about it with a video abstract. Procedures or techniques can be well explained in video format. Graphic or aesthetic appeal, disease processes can be explained well, and we'll take a look at one of those just momentarily here, and depicting clinical signs and symptoms, but a lot of things can be communicated well via a video abstract. This was put together by the folks at the Minnesota Prion Center for Prion Research and Outreach to describe the disease process of chronic wasting disease and how it works. And this was well produced. The sound is good, and it's created with an animation tool that really kind of makes it accessible for a wide range of folks. We'll just look at a little bit of it here.
Chronic wasting disease can easily spread in nature, and it can take up to 2 years for CWD to kill an infected animal. But why is that? CWD is a prion disease. Prions are a type of protein that are commonly found in healthy animals and humans, but can be misfolded into dangerous infectious prions. Infectious prions can also be transmitted through and remain in the environment, such as in soil, food, or water. Transmission routes are very complex, but one way that CWD can be transmitted is through a healthy deer ingesting these infectious prions from their environment. For example, a healthy deer is exposed to the misformed CWD prion proteins by eating grass that contains an infectious prion. This infectious prion can travel through the deer's esophagus and into its stomach and intestines. As misformed prion proteins come into contact with normal prion proteins, this physical contact can cause the normal protein to change shape and become the pathogenic CWD form. Misformed prion proteins multiply in the body of an animal and continue to travel throughout the body. The prions can spread from the intestines to the lymph and nervous tissues, traveling up the spinal cord. Eventually, infectious prions will colonize the brain. As time progresses, the animal begins to show symptoms. Chronic wasting disease can even...
Sorry, forgive me, but I think you get the idea. That was really well made, and we'll talk tomorrow about some of the tools that you can use, including some animation tools that are generally a little more accessible than people might give them credit for, and they can really help you put together something neat like that as part of a video abstract. So we'll talk about some best practices for putting together video abstracts. Again, there's really no one way to create a video abstract, but there are best practices to consider. We'll continue to drive home the importance of brevity and clarity. So 4 minutes in length is the maximum you want to do. Specifically for Research Day, we're asking that if you do a video abstract, it's no longer than 4 minutes. Different journals, I think, have different guidelines, but from what I've been able to glean, they're generally anywhere between 3 and 5 minutes. Most ask for 4 as a maximum as well. It helps to build an outline and practice even before you start recording. If you kind of have an outline and you rehearse it a few times, it's going to make it a little easier when you do push record. Introduce yourself and your topic essentially to start telling the story. You'll want to highlight your main results and conclusions. Certain things, like, the nuances of the methodology you may not need to include. There's going to be a lot of stuff that you can't include that's really important to your study, but you specifically want to highlight the main results and conclusions, the big findings. And then you probably want to discuss future developments as a result of this work that you're doing. What are the potential implications? So it's always kind of a forward-looking thing at the end of it. You want to use clear and concise narration. And again, in plain language, we'll continue to talk about how important using plain language to discuss your science is so that you can reach general audiences. If you fall back on jargon, you run the risk of alienating all sorts of audiences. You might miss out on press coverage because journalists won't be able to understand it, or they don't have the time to want to try to understand it. And the work would generally speak only to scientists. So we hope that you want to speak to all sorts of people about your science, because it will affect all sorts of people and probably their pets too. If you can tell a story about your research findings, that's even better. I mean, that's really what doing infographics and video abstracts are all about, is that storytelling piece. And though it might seem difficult to tell a story in 4 minutes about your science, if you can do it, that's going to be the best way to engage your audience. You know, perhaps one way to start to think about how to structure a story for your video abstract is to pose one of the main questions that you posed for yourself when you set out to do your research, and then weave in the story about the process of answering that question. Posing a question early with the promise or prospect of an answer at the end is a great way to kind of hook a viewer and keep them engaged and watching until the end. Some of the same best practices for infographics apply to video abstracts, specifically in limiting the amount of text. You want to make sure that your text isn't too small, so no small text. You know, you kind of want everything to be in proportion. The whole purpose of this medium is to accompany an entire article's worth of text. So less is more when it comes to your video abstract text-wise. Be sure any music you use to underlay the video is free to use in order to avoid copyright infringement. We'll talk about some music sites that you can look at if you want to include music in your video abstract. You want to, I jumped one, sorry. Avoid distracting backgrounds and choose spaces with good lighting if you're going to be actually filming some video footage. If you're looking to create a video abstract for research day and you don't have a published paper, I think that's totally okay. Just know that if you eventually do create video abstracts, you know, in your future career to accompany future articles, and we hope that you do, you'll always want to link to the paper in case people arriving to the abstract from social media or YouTube, if that might be the way that they're arriving at it and they're not actually accessing it from the journal itself. So you want to include the link to your article that the video abstract refers to. And then consider including a call to action. Shannon talked about the importance of that. Is there an action you'd like your viewers to take? Even if it's just as simple as doing more research on their own or suggesting that they read the journal article to learn more, a call to action can help increase engagement with your science and your audiences. Visuals to consider. We talked a little bit about this, and there's no, you know, those are some options. You don't have to do all of them. It's not necessarily feasible to do them all, but these are just different things that you can consider. Illustrations. There are some design tools online that you can find that will help with that. Infographics, as Shannon just took us through, how to put together really good infographics, photos, animations, video clips, and GIFs or GIFs if you're of that persuasion. Lab footage, data visualizations. I really like this video abstract. It's from a study out of the University of California, San Diego, and the Salk Institute for Biological Sciences. This was published in the journal Cell, and it includes some of the list at left, and I think they did a really good job. So we'll just watch a little bit of this one as well.
Metabolic syndrome, or METS, is a set of symptoms that increases the risk for diabetes, heart disease, and stroke. METS is defined by at least 3 of these 5 symptoms: obesity, excess abdominal fat, abnormal cholesterol or triglycerides, high blood pressure, high blood sugar. Many METS patients are on 1 or more medications. They are advised to eat less and exercise more, but these lifestyle changes are hard for many METS patients to follow. Recent research in circadian science suggests that erratic eating patterns can contribute to METS. Most Americans eat over 15 hours a day, from coffee with cream at 7 a.m. to a bedtime snack at 10 p.m. We wanted to test if limiting daily calories to a consistent 10-hour window could help METS patients better manage their disease. We recruited 19 patients with METS. After a 2-week observation, they were asked to pick a 10-hour window of time and eat within that window for 12 weeks. Most people chose to delay breakfast and advance dinner by 1 to 2 hours to eat within a 10-hour window. They did not skip breakfast or dinner. Their meals became more consistent, and they could eat this way for at least 5 days in a week. At the end of 12 weeks, we found several benefits of a 10-hour time-restricted eating. Each person improved in at least one of the criteria for metabolic syndrome. Many lost weight and reduced abdominal fat. Some reduced their blood pressure and cholesterol. People with high blood sugar had more stable blood sugar levels. This pilot study shows that 10-hour TRE may help people with METS manage their disease, and it lays the foundation for rigorous randomized clinical studies.
I really liked kind of how they set up what they sought out to find with a certain pattern of visual techniques with those check boxes. And then they returned to that when they wanted to talk about and discuss what the findings actually were. It was, to me, just a really well structured, the animation was good, but that kind of parallel visual structure throughout the video abstract, to me, was really effective. So I thought that was good. So your on-camera presence, so far we haven't seen a video abstract example yet with scientists on camera, but that's certainly a big part of it if you choose to do that. It's okay to have a few takes. Remember, you'll likely be editing video with video editing software, so definitely don't be afraid to screw up. But at the same time, like I mentioned earlier, you might want to run through your script once or twice before recording it, just to have a sense of kind of cadence and timing. And, you know, don't be afraid to be yourself. Let your personality shine through. It will help disarm audiences. It'll make your video abstract more engaging, and people will be able to connect with it a little bit more. These are some general best practices that we've come across for presenting on camera. Not all of these are easy for everyone to do, and that's totally okay. It's just, these are just some kind of things to keep in mind as you're putting your video abstract together. So wearing a solid top, a solid, non-distracting background, stand with good posture. You know, if you're presenting solo, or I'm sorry, if you're framing the video abstract so that you're being interviewed or you're interviewing somebody, you want to kind of speak at an angle and not looking directly at the camera, because you don't want it to seem strange that somebody is addressing you, but you're addressing somebody else. If you are presenting just you, feel free to look right at the camera. That way you're addressing your audience directly. It can help to kind of vary your sentence structure and cadence and intonation. I say that despite the fact that I'm not probably doing much of that myself. Again, these are best practices and things to try to strive for, and try to avoid being robotic, which is something we should always try to do. So where to publish video abstracts? As we discussed, a lot of journals are making this an option, and some of them, I think, require or ask for a video abstract for every publication. So I think you should feel free to certainly, if it's unclear, ask the journal whether that's something you can include. Again, it helps both you and the journal to promote science and be more open about science. You can reuse your video abstract in presentations. Think of how many times you might be speaking about your work. And if you have a video abstract, that really is another element that you can use that's really powerful. The those are some examples of some journals that include video abstracts: Environmental Research Letters, Equine Veterinary Journal, Cell Press. There's a whole bunch of others. Of course, like we talked about, you can share it on social media and share it with us so that we can distribute your video abstracts and reach new audiences.